The economy is going to get better, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. People don't fix things until they see it's broken.
Then it's too late.
Yes and no, right? People are they're keeping their cars right now, even if they're getting a little bit older, rather than take the risk of a new higher car payment. So, each person out there has a little bit of better feel for their particular industry, right? Some industries are just cruising along, they're doing okay, right? But that's not the right attitude, right? Just because, let's say you and I are doing okay, what about our neighbor, right? If he's doing good and we're all doing good, that's what we want. Ultimately, that's what we want.
So tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm a commercial banker. I've been in the business for over 35 years. I'll tell you a little bit about my background overall, then we'll focus on the banking. I was blessed with 2 careers, one of which I retired from about 3 years ago. I retired from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I worked in special operations. I worked in a counterterrorism unit. I started off as a operator with a mountain rescue unit where I was a medic on a helicopter. And then I worked a dignitary protection intelligence unit where we protect senators, congressmen, VIPs from other countries and so forth. I started off in the banking industry as a loan officer. Worked my way up into management. Had a passion for it. Going back to originally, how did I get into banking? I was fortunate where I did some what they call like placement research. In the military, when you test for positions and stuff, I thought I was going to join the Army Rangers, and so I had to go through a bunch of testing. And one of the reasons for that is they kind of figure out what your aptitude is, what you can do, and so forth like that. And I was fortunate. They said you could do a lot of things. One of them was what could have been in the intelligence field. But anyway, I read a book, The Color of My Parachute. And The Color of My Parachute basically talks about you first determining what your skill set is, what you're good at and what you like, So I kind of figured out from that, one of the prefaces of that book was to, A, trust your talent, right? And pursue your passion. So I was good at math. And, I like people. I like being outside. And so I had an interest in finance. So I got a degree in finance. And originally I was in the chemical field. I was, my first 3 years in college, I was a ag biologist. So when I got out of school, I ended up with a degree in finance, but my contacts were all in the chemical industry. And I was a licensed advisor. And so I ended up working for the chemical industry, worked for Big Pharma on the ag side and so forth like that. Loved that industry because I was working with farmers. But you max out on income. And I owned part of a distribution company. And the other partner I had was a former Navy pilot who had a degree in accounting. And we had 2 branches. I opened up the one in Oxnard and he had the one in Carlsbad. And anyway, so he and I dealt with the bankers. So when I needed to make a transition, I just started doing research again, right? And I looked at some, professions, some that would have, a little higher income potential. And since I knew that my skill set was with numbers and finance, I started asking a lot of questions about banking. And I was fortunate that somebody was honest enough to tell me, there's different types of careers in banking. There's different types of specialties. He said that had he had it to do over again, he might have made it a little bit different. And so he had told me, he says, those the ones that not only do commercial banking, but also do like commercial real estate banking, they earn a lot of money. And I said, sign me up. Anyway, but I had to start from scratch, and I had to start some research, and you just don't jump into banking. You have to start talking to people, and then you start learning. And then fortunately, every once in a while, as you know in life, you'll run into somebody that's kind enough, considerate enough, they'll mentor you, right? So one time I had somebody tell me, here, look, let me teach you some terminology and and some things that you might want to do that'll kind of get you started in the business and And that's what I did. And I followed that. And I was very, again, I said, blessed to be fortunate to, started off at a small bank And it lasted for about a year or so, and they had some, internal conflicts going on. And at that point, I realized, I need security for my family, my wife and kid. And so I went to work for Home Savings, and they were a big bank, and I said, okay. And I was there for about 11 years, and it was a good experience because they treated the customers very well. And that was my entree, into banking.
That's a lot. You worked and did a lot of things. I think with what you just said right now, there's a lot of tips, a lot of advice, so much things to unpack. And we can spend like a couple hours just, unraveling your whole career history and path and a lot of different things, chemistry, finance, banking, working for the special forces, protecting
special operations,
special operations, protecting VIP politicians and stuff like that. That's what you said?
Yeah.
Wow. It's like I'm watching a movie right now. It's a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a lot of stuff to unravel. I think that's, I'm sure your resume is a couple of pages long, but I think
I'm old.
Oh, no, because you have a lot of experience, a lot of really cool things that you did. I think someone young watching this or someone that just started their career, they see that you didn't start off, where you are now, right, but you had to there was a path. There's people that mentored you along the way. A lot of great things. I know you said you started a bank. How does someone start a bank? Someone's probably watching this. Wait, you just said you started a bank. How do you even do that?
That's a great question, and you're right. There's not too many people that have started a bank. What happened is that, again, as I was working in my banking career, I grew in responsibilities and so forth like that. Eventually, I was in a management position where I did what they call a couple bank turnarounds, and that's where we went into a bank that was failing or having problems, right, with the regulators and things like that. And we came in, kind of did an assessment. I was part of the management team. We did an assessment to figure out what was working, what was not, what needed to be improved. I tended to focus on the commercial lending side of it, okay? And so after a couple of those, it came to the point where the person that I was reporting to and working with, we decided, you know what, we're dealing with board members and we're dealing with regulators. Why don't we do it for ourselves, right? Because we're doing it for the people, the board members that are making us do it. We're the front, the bankers for the board. And so we both had a dream to pursue that. And it took about 3 years to go from the initiation plan to going through the execution to finally in 2005, we got our charter approved. So we were happy, right? We got our charter approved. And then it was like, okay, now you're a banking organization. So what's next? Now you got to raise the money to open your bank, okay? So that process, again, took another skill set. So I had to educate myself in private equity. And so I have a professional designation in alternative investments, which is like hedge funds, because I needed to learn how to raise money, right? But that's what we did. We spent the next year raising money. We raised enough money to open up a bank and, finding a location, hiring people, building in systems and all that sort of stuff. But that's how we opened a bank.
How much money, on average, do banks need to start? Are we talking about millions, or are we talking about billions?
Yeah, we're talking millions. To start, we're talking millions. And again, depending on where you are at, what part of the country, what your business model is, I would say, probably between $10 and $20 million is kind of what it used to be. Might be a little higher now, and it might be slightly less than that, depending on what part of the country you're in, right? Because if you go to certain states, houses cost less and things like that, so you don't need to have as much money.
Okay. And you said 2005, so it's close to the 2008. The whole Great Recession that we always talk about, right?
Glad you brought that up. So, and this goes back to dealing with adversity in life. Okay, so imagine that, right? You have you pursue your lifelong dream. You open up a bank, you start working, and you start having success. Right, first year went pretty good. Boom, 2007. Wow. The bubble burst, right? So now we're going down this road where we're in one of the largest recessions the United States has experienced. Not a good time to be a good bank, a new bank. We ended up getting sold and purchased in 2009. So what happened to Gene is I had to reinvent myself, right? Because being an executive VP, co-founder of a bank, it's hard to go out and get a job with another bank. They're like, oh, no, you've been in a higher position than I am. You're not hiring you. So what do, right? You got a family to feed and so forth like that. Fortunately, guess what? The new skill I picked up in private equity, that opened up other pathways. Because what happened, some of the board members still had money, wanted to do some. And so there was a new opportunity that had flourished. What? It's called distressed assets, okay? There's companies that buy distressed assets. What does that mean? Basically what that means, and if for some of you looking for a formula how to get rich or how the rich get richer, what they do is they buy things at a discount, okay? And they do it when the cycles go bad, right? So instead of paying $1 for something, maybe you're paying 65 cents or 70 cents, right? Or 50 cents. So that is, in the essence, the core of making money, okay? You make your profit when you buy it, okay? You can't depend on inflation or anything like that. People, hey, Josh, go ahead and buy that property. I know it's going to go up for sure. The rents are going up and everything. You can't do that. You got to say, no, I got to make my profit when I buy it. So worst case scenario, no matter what happens in the marketplace, I still have a little cushion, right? I have a cushion. So anyway, I started raising money for one of the larger distressed asset groups who ended up partnering with one of the largest hedge funds in the country, and they bought billions and billions of dollars worth of homes, okay? And I became a board member there. It was relatively a good life for the beginning because I was just bringing money and making things work. But after a while, I had responsibilities for the people that I brought their money in. So I became an active person in management, which means I had to work. I had to go every day. But it was a good experience, because again, you don't know what you don't know, okay? And for all of you that are exploring in your mind, hey, what do I do? What's my next venture? How can I get where I want to go? I always try to explain to people, I said, the first thing you want to do is figure out what you're good at and merge that with what you like. Because if you love going to work like you do, doing what you're doing right now, you don't mind getting up in the morning. You want to go. At nighttime when you get home, you're not burnt out. You're still thinking about things you can do to make things better, right? For the franchise. As opposed to, it's a difficult life that we're, unfortunately, a lot of our parents and a lot of our friends, sometimes they have a job, they don't really like it, but they have to do it because they have a mortgage and they have kids to support. Maybe they have a boss that treats them bad, or maybe sometimes people do things they don't feel good about, right? They just don't feel good about it. And that's not a recipe for success. You need to find something that you like getting up in the morning, go do your thing. You got to smile on your face. Hey, Josh, how's it going? It's going good, bro. Your vibes are all good.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest advice I would give someone in terms of, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? And then the next step is to break it down into simple pieces. Don't complicate yourself. For example, my mindset is I'm kind of a analytical person. I like to digest data. Give me all the information. I'll read it. I'll digest it. I'll dissect it. And I'll make a decision, right? Most people don't like that. My wife's like, honey, just get to the point. I don't want to hear how the coffee's made. I want to get the coffee, right? So, but keep it simple, right? So what is it you're going to do, right? Are you going to be in a sales position, right? Are you an engineer? Are you really good with your hands, right? Are you an artist? Are you creative? Start there, okay? Then figure out who am I? What am I, right? And because basically what you're saying to yourself is, that's what I like. People usually are not good at things that they don't like. So let that resonate a little bit, right? If you're doing something you don't like, then this podcast is probably for you. You should be thinking, you know what? I got to figure out what I should do. Start with what you're good at, what you feel good about, and then go from there.
Yeah, you said a lot of things that I think it's super powerful. I mean, one of the things you first mentioned was I had to reinvent myself. You were seems like you're at the top of the mountain, but then you're starting to fall down. Recession, biggest recession, right? 2008. Then after that, you reinvented yourself. You had other skills that maybe you weren't using that
Yes.
much at the moment that led you to another career that maybe someone watching, well, why am I learning this? Because maybe it'll open another opportunity.
Absolutely.
And then what you're saying, that it's something that you love so much that you go home, you want to see how you can grow it, how you can expand it, how you could just, because you love it so much. You don't hate it. You don't just do it to pay for the bills. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think not a lot of people talk about that, the importance of, you don't just work to make money, but you also want to be able to do something you're passionate about as well at the same time. That's very, very important. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about banking. We're talking about all these important things. You said you also dealt with some hedge funds, right? You said the biggest hedge fund. Was it BlackRock?
No, it wasn't BlackRock, but it was Colony Capital.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, they're also very big.
They're big too, okay. Yeah, but one thing that we didn't talk about that I think is important in the equation, right? As far as not doing things that you don't feel good about, okay? And the other story here that's really important, and it's kind of worth mentioning, is to when you serve in life, try to keep in mind that you don't just want to serve yourself, right? Service to self is selfishness. Okay, there's a lot of people that are rich and they're very successful. They're not happy. They're not happy. They don't. They'll steal from people. They'll do bad things to people to benefit themselves. And then there's that other person, right? That person that's service to others, right? The person that's always trying to help other people. Okay, and sometimes when you're helping other people, you're not benefiting from it financially or anything like that. You're getting the satisfaction that you help somebody. Okay, so. Like, for example, when I first started with the Sheriff's Department, I was working in a mountain rescue unit, right? And it's hard, dangerous work, right? Rescuing people stuck up on a cliff, lost in the Mount Baldy and under blizzard conditions and all that sort of stuff. And, it's volunteer work, right? You get $1 a year, the Sheriff's Department, and unless you work a special assignment where they're contracting you for overtime, then you get paid for that. But when you're getting called out to a rescue mission, that's volunteer stuff, right? And you're walking along a cliff on the snow. The wind could very easily push you over. It's a 1,000-foot drop on the other side. It's a blizzard condition you can barely see, but someone's child is missing out in the snow. And you saw the parents when you walked in crying, freaking out because they lost their child in the middle of this adventure, right? And guess what? When you find that child and you bring it to the parents, that's the greatest reward in the world. There's no amount of money that can match the feeling that you get that you rescued a child and you brought him home to the parents, right? Or you showed up to some motorcycle guy that fell, that missed a turn on a cliff. Nobody even knew he was missing until a helicopter flew by and saw a reflection or something, and they called us, and you find the guy, and he's an hour away from dying or something like that, and you bring him back and you save him. That's a reward for service to others. So I want to make sure that, because when you say BlackRock, you're talking about corporations. Some of them are just out for themselves. It's bottom line profit is what matters. End of quote. So keep that in mind when you served. Try not to be selfish. Try to, because the more you help others, you help yourself.
Yeah, it's a greater rewarding. It's better to give than to receive. It's a lifestyle that I try to do in everything that I do as well. And everything you were saying, like I love hiking. I like going to the mountains. I go to the ones in Pasadena. Yeah. When it was like a blizzard, earlier this year, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, it's
you can see how people get lost, right?
Yeah, it's very easy to get lost. Thank God I was with someone that was more experienced. He helped out, but. Yeah, that's a whole other podcast we could talk about, all the rescue missions and everything. That's really, really cool. And I think, where you're talking about serving others, and it's more like having a purpose-driven life. And it's not just money, but it's like, am I providing value to others? Am I really living out some sort of purpose-driven life? I think that's super important. And I know we're talking already a lot about the economy, but we're in 2023, elections are coming. The economy says that some people say we're in a recession. Other people say we're not. Some people say the houses are going to drop like worse than 2008. Others say, no, they're only going to keep going up. What are your thoughts on the current state of the economy? Are we headed for a recession, already in it? Are some sectors like the tech, so much layoffs happening?
Yes.
So what is your opinion? What do you think about that?
I think we're in it already, okay? And the reason that I say that is, being in the commercial banking business, you already have contact with businesses that are suffering. Their interest rates have gone up really high, right? A lot of them are having problems servicing their loans. Big corporations, because the cost of capital's gone up so much, they're not hiring more people. They're not adding on. They're not expanding and so forth. So that is a recession, okay? But we have other problems, okay, that I think it's very important that I hope that in this podcast, I can convey that people need to wake up. They need to start getting involved. We're spending money in Ukraine and places like that where, there's people here, they're living in the streets, We have bridges and streets that are falling apart. And you're looking around, am I the only one that's noticing this, right? and then there's that division, right? Sometimes they do it intentionally. They want to pit, the rich against the poor, black against the white, straight against the gay. That's all. We're all human beings. We all love each other. You take a bunch of kids, you put them in a room together, they get along great. Everybody's fine, right?
Yeah.
And then, one thing about communities is people want to do good, right? Just, I want to make a decent living so I can raise my kids. I want to feel secure in my home. I don't want, worrying about violence and so forth. So where do I think things are going, right? I think that what's going to happen is probably this summer things are going to get a little bit dicey. And that's when people will start waking up, because what happens with most people is they go to work, right? They come home, they have a couple beers, leave me alone. I don't want to pay attention. It's all bad news out there. So, I wish somebody would fix it, but they're saying, somebody, what about you? Get involved, just start looking around. Don't wait for somebody else to fix things for you. Just take a look. What can I do, right? What can I do to get involved? The economy is going to get better, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. So let's, prepare for that, right? But the last thing I'll say is this. People don't fix things until they see it's broken.
Then it's too late.
Well, yes and no, right? Because sometimes you have to wake people up so that they can start saying, because we do see that in society. And the other thing too is that, the message of love and kindness and stuff like that never gets old. That's what that's what drives us, right? That's what's inside all of us. I love everybody. We're all human beings, we all have red blood. We all love our families and stuff like that. Who cares? I don't care if you're from, a country 7,000 miles away. You know what I mean? Most of the time you get a couple people in a room together, they kind of give each other, hey, what's going on, bro? You might not even understand each other. Just like, hey, man, what's up?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Very, very true. And for the average person that's probably sees the headlines and all that, what's the most basic things they could do to prepare? Because I think the biggest thing right now is we see a lot of factors that are hint recession, but I think the biggest thing, like you said, is if people don't have their jobs, they'll just be fine. Unemployment's still very strong, but once that starts, dipping, once it starts affecting them directly, I think that's where people are going to wake up, right? Like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's industries right now that are affected more than others, right? And so forth. And so they're the ones that'll feel the pain a little bit first, right? For example, when you talk to construction workers and you ask them, hey, I'm not picking anybody. I'm going to say the person I'm talking to, his name is Ramon. Okay. Hey, Ramon, what's up? You busy? Nah, man, not like I used to be. Really? Yeah, dude. We used to have a lot of work all the time. And now, it's one job here, one job there. That dynamic is out there, so it's affecting families already, right? So, and then you look at building materials and supplies. They're not selling as much as they used to, right? Because people aren't refinancing their homes as much as they were before. That means they're not remodeling. They're not building new homes because the cost of money's gone way up, right? People are they're keeping their cars right now, even if they're getting a little bit older, rather than take the risk of a new higher car payment. So, each person out there has a little bit of better feel for their particular industry, right? Some industries are just cruising along, they're doing okay, right? So, but that's not the right attitude, right? Just because, let's say you and I are doing okay, what about our neighbor, right? You know what? If he's doing good and we're all doing good, that's what we want. Ultimately, that's what we want. Yeah.
And then with Jerome Powell, saying that he wants to pause, but that he wants to continue the interest rates later in the year, all those things too, when you start to think about the economy and everything, there's those indicators, that it's coming very soon, or we're going to see a little bit of a slowdown. And like you said, I think the most important thing is like making sure that everyone's doing okay. Because we might be doing good, but someone else might not. You know, I have a lot of friends that they just graduated in computer science, like a lot, the majority. They cannot find a job.
Yeah.
They cannot find a job.
Yeah. The layoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. They cannot find a job. But then I have other friends that work in government or something, and they're
doing
easy.
fine.
They're doing fine.
So two things to note here. There's a disconnect then, what you just said from your comments. There's a disconnect with the government. Okay. So it's too big, right? There's a disconnect. We're spending too much money, right? And now we're putting money in other places when we're hurting here. There's a new system coming out because we're talking about finance, okay? So are you familiar with the BRICS system?
Yeah, the Brazil, Russia, India.
So for your audience, it's not, okay? It's been building and building and building, and it's getting very, very strong. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But now there's a lot of other countries, Egypt, Iran, Argentina, Germany, France, other countries have showed an interest to join. The Russian ruble is doing probably the best in the world right now in currency.
When the war started, it went down, then it shot up.
Exactly, and the reserve currency of the world now is the yuan, right? The Chinese yuan. And what people don't understand is that, think about that for a second, right? And the basis for that financial system goes along with what you said. It's quality. It's a gold, precious metal-backed system, the way we used to be on. By the way, that's part of our Constitution. We weren't supposed to get off gold-backed currency. And that's our problem, right? We start printing money. Good, start printing money, But the good sign is that is growing and growing, okay? What is it doing for humanity and mankind? It's creating equality. So what does that mean? That means that when we get on that system, a dollar in the U.S. will be the same as a peso in Mexico, the same as a dinar in Iraq, same as a dong in Vietnam, okay? Same as a ruble in Russia. And that's what it should have always been that way, right? It should never have been kind of, the Western elite central banks saying Mexico, oh, you know what? $33 are yours for one of ours, What? Or Africa, oh yeah, your money's really not worth anything. You need to use our dollar, our petrodollar. And by the way, Saudi Arabia's jumped off the U.S. dollar, okay? So for those that don't understand the financial, that's huge, people. The Saudis jumped off and went into the other system. So what does that do to the petrodollar? Why do you think we have such high interest rates here? Why do you think Jerome Powell is jacking up the cost of money? Because they need it. The rest of the world's like, you guys have been bullying the world for a long time. You know what? Now we're gonna make it even, and they don't like it. You don't hear about it in our media either, right? They don't talk about it that way. But the truth is, the rest of the world's getting tired of being bullied. And I'm an American. I love my country. I'm a patriot and so forth like that. But I don't like unfairness and I don't like bulliness. Just because I'm on this side of it, we have the strongest military in the world, doesn't make me feel any better, right? And it shouldn't, The other thing I wanted to leave with you in regards to evolving technologies, what's really exciting right now is we have a bunch of technology that was actually kind of hidden from us that's starting to emerge. Yeah. Anti-gravitic stuff, free energy, medicine that won't require big pharma stuff. This is a fantastic time to be alive. It's very, very exciting. And you're starting to see it, right? The disclosure stuff. The guy came out, this Grush guy, right? Talking about, hey, we got these black projects and, stuff like that. Which all of us probably thought, hey, we know they got technology that they're not talking about. And I understand the secrecy for the military because I love the military, blah, blah. But, if you guys got stuff that could help us, that's not fair. You need to share it right away and make it equal so that, not just the big companies get to benefit from it. So this is what's coming. And so we're living in exciting times.
I think we're like at the breaking point of just like the Industrial Revolution, we're going to another time, and who knows what's going to be coming, with AI and everything that's coming as well too. And with the blockchain technology and, with cryptocurrency and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of interest, crazy with Tesla, with Elon Musk, all the stuff that he's doing as well. You already went over a lot of great things. You know, I think a lot of great advice, a lot of insight on the economy and everything. I know what the bank runs. I know it's directly connected with what you're already saying about tightening of the money. You know, with interest rates going up, it seems like we're going to hit 10% mortgages soon, which is not too crazy from if you zoom out,
Historically,
right?
yeah.
Historically. But for what the prices are, plus interest rates, it is pretty crazy. Yeah. Like, what do you tell someone right now, that young person that's like, just graduated college, just got their first, you know, finally making $100,000. Well, you got to make double or triple that to buy a house in California, at least. Yeah. What do you tell someone like that, like Gen Z, millennial, like they're just trying to buy a house?
Keep the faith. We're in a transition. Okay, don't let that bring your vibes down. Prioritize. Okay, so look, I'll give you a short story real quick, but it's relevant, right? So when I was 23 years old, it wasn't by plan. You know, when I got home one day and my wife goes, "Hey, I'm pregnant." I said, "Really?" Okay, you know, yeah. But anyway, so my daughter was born when I was like almost 24, and I was raised in a house. I was fortunate, you know. We lived in a, you know, middle income neighborhood and stuff like that, you know, and I was fortunate. And but I lived in a house and I had a swimming pool, you know, and I wanted that for my kid, you know, Mr. Macho, right? And got that Latino pride and stuff. And it was like, I want a house. So I bought my first house, but it was affordable back then, right? A long time ago, guys, but it was affordable. But that was me. I wanted a house. Now, I know there's some people listening to this right now that they have the same mindset. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? It means you might not be able to buy your house in LA or Santa Monica or Beverly Hills, right? You might have to go out to the perimeters, right? Mm-hmm. You know, maybe it's the Inland Empire or whatever, right? If that fits with your employment and you can do it, you can go where you can afford, right? And you know, one thing I learned about in law enforcement, because I was working as a reserve, right? Mm-hmm. I was making, you know, fairly decent money as a banker. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I live in a nice neighborhood. I live in a very fluid neighborhood. But, you know, the deputies that I would team up and work with, you know, a lot of them they would have to drive in from Norco and San Bernardino, and they work for LA County, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's where they could afford to buy a home, you know. So I would just say that, look, one thing that's happened is that, yeah, interest rates have gone up, but the fact is that housing prices haven't gone down, mm-hmm. All right? So I don't think that, you know, we're going to see that kind of a bubble there. We see a slowing down. But again, you know, the millenniums, you guys have a blessing and you have a burden, okay? Your burden is that you came into the market with high interest rates and high cost of homes. So it makes your task even harder to get a home. Your parents had it easier when it came mm-hmm. to that, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe some of your relatives that are maybe 20 years older than you had it easier, right? So that's okay. The blessing that you have is that you're going to see this technology. You know, the, what do you call it? The Jetsons, I don't know. That's an older term for a lot of your audience, mm-hmm. but the Jetsons was a cartoon series that they used to show flying cars and all kinds of space age stuff. We're heading into that future. We're heading into a future, right, where you're going to have this amazing technology, you know, stuff that you can't even conceive of right now, all right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to make you live for a long time, you know. Hopefully this will get here in time so your parents will live for a long time too, right? and it will, okay. But what I'm saying is there's a lot to be excited about. And you have to have faith inside, you know. When you go through rough times, and let's say like me, man, my dream was shattered, you know. My lifelong dream was to start a bank. Started a bank and at the time it was horrible. And you're sitting there, you know, you could sit there and sulk in your depression and blah, blah, blah. And I did for a while. There were some times when I was drinking almost every day, and I'm not a drinker. But back then I was having a couple shots every day, you know. Mm-hmm. And then one day just said, hey, you know what? Life goes on. Get on the phone, blah, 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 blah. Hey, somebody wants to talk to you. You know, they know what you did, da, 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 da. And that's how it goes, right? Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is when things are really down is don't lose your faith. don't lose your faith. Don't turn to bad habits and stuff like that. Just sit down and prioritize. Prioritize. What does that mean? Just keep it simple. You can't have too many goals at the same time. Just take a couple small goals. Try to focus on that. Every day you say, what am I doing towards my goal? Because if you don't do anything towards your goal, then you're not going to feel good. Then you're going to be depressed. But if you do a little bit every day, I made a few phone calls. I talked to a couple people. Networking is so important, right? You just got to talk to people because every once in a while you'll get lucky. And hey, Josh, I know some guy that needs somebody to set up some podcasts and is technologically orientated. You good with computers and stuff? Well, yeah. Well, maybe you should talk to him, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of opportunity. It always will be. But if you prioritize, you want that house now, then you're probably not going to buy in the center of the city, right? You're probably going to have to go outside. You have to expand it. Some people have left the state. A lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. Why? Because they can buy a house for $140,000. It's a nice house in a nice neighborhood. They're like, hey, dude, I'm making $100,000 a year and I got a $1,100 a month payment. I'm good, Mm-hmm. So prioritize.
Yeah, prioritize, and it's not going to be your dream house, the first house, but
exactly.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. And just don't give up. Don't lose the faith, like you said. And just even when you're at your highest and you experience, living your dream, and you also experience getting it crushed all at the same time, but you still kept going. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing. Networking. There's opportunities out there. With talking about finance and everything, you've been working in banking for, I won't say the years. I don't want to throw your age out there, but what is like the biggest financial, mistakes people make that you've seen? The biggest mistakes that they make?
Spending too much. So what happens is ego. All right. So if you want to break it down to what the real cause, it's ego. A lot of times people, hey, my brother-in-law or whatever, they got a nice new car. He's got a badass ride like that, and you're like, I want to give me a badass ride. I can do that too. Excuse my language, that people will do that, right? You can't do that. You got to just kind of work within your budget, trying to separate your ego from what you really need, and then save. Always have a cushion, because look, the most successful people in the world are people that have suffered through things, suffered through events, because bad things make strong people, right? It makes you stronger because it teaches you reality. So when I'm talking to a business guy, he's had a company for a long time, and he starts bragging to me, we've never had a downtime in our company's history, and blah, 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 and I'm thinking to myself, you will. And the same with people, right? So, don't spend every penny you have. Have a little cushion, because sometimes the car breaks down, or even worse, maybe one of your relatives is going through some bad times, and he says, hey, bro, I lost my job, like that. And I've had this happen where somebody told me, look, man, I don't have a lot of money for even groceries and shit like that. And I was like, here, dude, can I give you a call? No, I'm not asking for it. I go, yeah, don't worry about it, bro. Here, because there's times in people's life where it's like, I don't have $20 in my wallet. I bought bread and milk for the kids and like that, and I barely made the mortgage and like that. And Holmes, I'm hurting, and what do? You don't turn your back. Most people do, right? You know that, right? A lot of your friends, when things are going really good, you got all kinds of friends. They invite you to parties. Then when you don't have your job or you don't have money, the phone doesn't ring, right? You see them in the market and they kind of look, hey, bro, what's going on? Yeah, check it out. See you later, bro. They cut out on you. So save your money. Don't overspend, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really the most important thing, because, buy what you can afford. I don't use credit cards, right? I pay cash. I learned a long time ago, because I work with people that are very wealthy. But some of them started, like myself, with nothing. One time there was a guy that had a lot of apartment buildings. How'd you do this? Well, I was blessed. He said, I was a superintendent for a building, and I worked, and then when the owner passed, he passed on a lot of knowledge to me. So I bought a duplex. I lived in one, and with the help of the other rent, it was covering my mortgage, right? And then I bought a triplex, and then I got a fourplex, and now he owned a bunch of buildings, but he didn't have loans on them. He didn't have loans, and he was getting a refinance because he was just going to take a small loan because he could use it to buy another deal, okay? And then he would pay it off. And that's how he was a postman. He worked for the Postal Service. He did this on the side. And so, I really learned a lot. I said, wow, this guy never really made a lot of money, right? He's a blue collar guy, delivering mail every day, but he's got a fortune. And my own father-in-law was actually, he was a laborer. My wife's Mexican American, and her father grew up in construction stuff, and he's old school. He bought a house, and then he bought another house, and then he bought another house, and his wife at the time managed the funds, right? But he ended up having like 8 or 9 homes. But he couldn't read. He couldn't read, right? But he was a successful guy, right? Because he had that principle that he learned from his grandparents, right? Hijo, guarda su dinero, save money. So that's, I guess I didn't mean to be long-winded, but it's a lot of data.
No, that's really good. I think the most important thing that I got from that is like anyone can do it. You was a postman, a laborer. You don't have to be a bank executive working at BlackRock, right? you can be delivering mail and be a multimillionaire. Absolutely. With multiple properties, right? Absolutely. But it's a process. You start off with one. I think that's the most important thing. I think all the things we've talked about today is going to help out a lot of people, be able to understand and be able to see that all the things we've talked about through your own life experience, it's like everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And I want to finish off something a little bit different, but I'm very interested to know, what is your dream car? Unless you already have it already, but what would be your dream car that you would like? Doesn't matter the price tag. What is that dream car?
Oh boy. I haven't thought about that too much. I tell you what, I have toys. And I have a 1970 Ford Bronco that I built up. It's off-road vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. And it's my favorite. I had a Corvette, a C6. I crashed it, almost died. So I like fast cars and stuff like that. But, it would probably be an exotic car. I just don't know which one off the top of my head, because again, you're asking an analytical guy, right? Yeah. I'd have to go do some comparisons and all that. But,
go look at the numbers and what's the 0 to 60.
But let me ask you this. If in the future the flying cars are available, would that be your dream car?
That would be crazy. I think that'd be very interesting. I think I had a conversation with my brother. I'm like, that's really cool. Hopefully you don't have to change the oil on those things, because imagine it starts dripping, it's gonna hit someone on the floor. Like, what's that? Oil's coming down.
Don't take it too much as a fantasy though, okay? Because I think in reality what I'm saying is that they're even planning it now, by the way. They're planning, there'd be more like a spaceport carports, right? Because that's coming. That's coming. I've been to tech conferences myself, okay? And I've seen it. And I'll leave you with this. We have technology. It's called a TR3B. Have you ever heard of that?
Never heard of that.
Look it up, guys. TR, Tom Robert, -3B, 3 boy. This is an anti-gravitic craft, okay? You can look it up on Google. There's a patent for it. And you know how the military works. Anything that they're showing you is old technology, okay? So when you look at it, you'll see it's a triangular spacecraft, okay? It's an interstellar craft. It's anti-gravitic. We've had that for a long time. So that's what I'm saying about that stuff.
I wonder what's right now.
You millennials and stuff like that, you're going to see that stuff. The sad thing I see sometimes is there's some people that are, maybe they're getting to that end part of their lives. They might not see it. It might take 5 or 10 years for that stuff to come out. But you'll see it. You guys here will see it. And I hope to see it, right? But that's reality. And do your research. Don't trust what I'm saying. Go to TR3B, Google it, use DuckDuckGo or whatever you need to use, whatever browser, but look it up and you're going to go, holy moly. How come they don't ever tell me? Or go to YouTube and put in TR3B and you'll see the videos on it and you go, wow, we have that?
And that's old technology. Wow. Yeah, that's some very interesting stuff. Maybe we'll put it on the screen or something so people can see. But yeah, I think everything we talked about today has been, really, really interesting conversation. I had a C6 Corvette. I sold it, but yeah, it was a really fun car.
A fun car.
Yeah, really nice car. But I think a lot of the things we talked about, it's going to help a lot of people, especially, the younger crowd, the Gen Z, millennials, just started their career, maybe just a couple years into their career or still in college or just trying to figure out their lives, what they want to do. Yeah. I think your vast experience and everything we talked about today is probably going to help out a lot of people. I don't know if there's any final thing you want to say before we end our conversation today. I think we might have to bring you back again for another episode, but
I appreciate that. But first of all, I want to thank you for what you and your organization does, because it's an honor to be with people that are in service to others. And so I do really respect what you do and stuff like that. Again, we're living in very exciting times. Keep the faith. When you're true to yourself, true to your concepts, and give up yourself and help other people. That doesn't mean times won't get tough. Times will be tough, but even when times are really tough, and I've had some tough times, but whatever, times I had, I would meditate, I would pray, and I would say, I know God won't forsake me, and even though sometimes I was like freaking out, right? I'm so angry. I used to be easy, now it's hard, You just have to have faith in yourself, and then at the same time, don't forget to have fun. Just because things aren't going well for you, don't take it out on your dog, and don't be rude to your child or your wife or your spouse, whoever that is. It's all about having fun. We were meant to laugh and have fun, enjoy music, and have a good time. Life is good. Yeah, life is definitely good. I think that's a really important thing that a lot of people forget to think about when they think about, getting better in their work and their careers and their business. Have fun also while you're doing it. Yeah. I think it's a really good advice there. And I think this was a really good episode. We're talking about a lot of great things. I know our audience watching it probably, taking a lot of notes. They're searching up that triangular TR3V, right? There you go. Really good stuff. I think if you really enjoyed the podcast today, please be sure to subscribe, share this with your friends and family. Definitely check out our other videos. Comment down below anything interesting you found from this podcast. I think this was a good conversation we had today. Thank you again, and we hope to have you for our next episode. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.